Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Rain-slicked streets blurred neon signs into streaks of red and yellow as Alara ran, her chest heaving, shoes slipping on puddles. The alley smelled of wet asphalt and despair, the shadows stretching like fingers ready to grasp her. Behind her, the clatter of footsteps grew louder, echoing with a sinister rhythm that made her stomach tighten. She had always been careful, cautious, but tonight had betrayed her. A trap she never saw coming. Her breaths came in ragged bursts as panic clawed up her throat. Somewhere in the darkness, a figure moved, silent yet menacing, closing in. She knew the world had shifted. Safety was an illusion. Then a rough hand grabbed her shoulder, spinning her into a stranger's arms. Muscular, warm, yet dangerous. His gaze burned like a wildfire, amber eyes catching the dim streetlight. "Don't move," he commanded, low and urgent, a growl beneath his voice. Alara froze, pulse racing, unsure whether she had just met a savior or a predator. The stranger's grip was firm but protective, as though he had been waiting for this moment. Alara's heart slammed against her ribs, fear and relief entangling. What are you?" she demanded, voice trembling. He didn't answer immediately, scanning the shadows with a predatory intensity. A low growl rolled from his throat, a sound both terrifying and oddly comforting. The footsteps behind them faltered, as though sensing a force they could not confront. Rain plastered her hair to her face, dripping into her eyes, yet she couldn't look away from him. Every instinct screamed danger, yet her body remained rooted to him, strange warmth seeping through the rain-soaked fabric of his coat. The stranger's jaw clenched, eyes narrowing, muscles tensing. Then, without a word, he lunged, slamming his weight against the attacker with an inhuman force. The sound of impact and a scream tore through the night, leaving Alara breathless, stunned. When the world finally stopped spinning, the alley was quiet save for the rain. The figure she had feared was gone, crumpled against the wet brick wall, unconscious, or worse. Alara's knees buckled, relief and terror warring in her chest. She looked up at her savior, trying to memorize every detail, the wild sweep of black hair, the angular jaw shadowed in starlight, and eyes like molten gold, filled with something feral yet sorrowful. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low, almost human again. Alara swallowed, nodding, words failing her. Her lips quivered as the adrenaline ebbed, leaving cold fear and heat of confusion behind. He extended a hand, rough yet steady, helping her to her feet. In that instant, she felt something shift, an invisible tether binding her to this stranger. Something dangerous, something forbidden, something irresistible. I think so," she managed, clutching his arm as if it could anchor her in reality. The rain slowed to a drizzle, mist curling around them like smoke. Her gaze kept flicking to him, curiosity warring with caution. He studied her silently, tense, calculating. A flicker of pain crossed his face, just for a moment, before he masked it with an unreadable expression. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, voice tight. "It's not safe." She wanted to protest, to assert her independence, but every instinct told her he was right. Behind him, the city lights flickered, and shadows twisted as if watching. Alara shivered, feeling exposed, naked even under layers of wet fabric. She didn't know why she trusted him, or why her pulse raced not from fear alone, but something else entirely. The night hummed around them, alive and waiting, holding secrets neither dared to voice. Before either could speak again, the stranger's ears twitched, subtle, almost imperceptible, and he froze. Alara noticed then the faint shimmer along his eyes, something primal, a shimmer no human possessed. He growled, soft and warning, and her stomach twisted. "They're coming," he muttered, eyes scanning the darkness. Her mind spun. Who was they? What did he mean? Her fear returned tenfold, but it mixed with a perverse thrill she couldn't name. Without another word, he grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper into the alley's shadow, moving like a predator and protector at once. Alara stumbled, heart pounding, every nerve alive, realizing her life had just changed in a heartbeat. She didn't know if she'd survive the night, but one thing was certain. She had already lost her heart. Alara had always moved through life like a shadow, unnoticed yet surviving. The small town of Greyhaven clung to the edge of a dense forest, the air perpetually scented with pine and mist. She lived in a cramped attic room above her aunt's bakery, the wooden beams low and creaking, sunlight slipping through a dusty window in thin golden strips. Her days were spent in chores and errands, the constant hum of the town filling her ears, laughter and gossip she barely understood. She knew she was different, smarter, quicker, yet fragile in ways she could not articulate. The townspeople often overlooked her, treating her like a child, or worse, invisible. Her father had disappeared when she was 6, leaving only an old silver locket and whispered warnings from her mother. The memory of that loss lingered, a shadow that twisted her chest whenever she thought of it. Her mother had vanished years later, leaving Greyhaven and its secrets behind. Alone, Alara learned to survive by listening, by moving carefully, by hiding in plain sight. Every glance felt like a test. Every stranger could carry danger. Her only solace was the edge of the forest, where sunlight danced on mossy rocks and leaves whispered secrets. She often wandered there after her aunt's bakery closed, breathing in the crisp, earthy air. Trees towered like silent guardians, and she imagined stories behind every rustle of branches. That was where she felt alive, where fear melted into wonder. It was also where she first noticed him, the figure that haunted her dreams after that rainy night. Weeks before the alley, she had glimpsed a man at the tree line, tall, shoulders broad, hair black as midnight, eyes golden even in shadow. He moved like liquid, silent, yet aware of her presence. He vanished before she could approach, leaving only the echo of his gaze. Alara tried to convince herself it was a trick of the light, a forest illusion, but she couldn't forget the way her pulse had jumped, the warmth spreading unexpectedly through her chest, a dangerous flutter she didn't understand. Her life had not been without struggle. Aunt Marion was kind but strict, and the bakery's money was never enough. Customers grumbled, flour coated every surface, and Alara often stayed until midnight, scrubbing counters and counting coins. She had a few friends, but even they kept her at arm's length, sensing something different about her. They didn't know about the dreams of a wolf's eyes staring into hers, of sharp teeth gleaming in silver moonlight. They didn't know about the strange pull in her chest when the forest whispered her name. Her reality was predictable, harsh, yet safe, until the day she walked into that alley, unaware of the danger waiting beyond the shadows. And yet, in her quiet life, she had developed a resilience, a spark that refused to be extinguished. It was that spark that would demand survival, that would fight for life when the stranger finally entered it fully. Her mind often wandered to the night before, trying to reconstruct what had happened. She remembered the rain-slicked streets, the attacker's cruel laughter, the terror squeezing her chest. She remembered the amber eyes locking on hers, the strength of the stranger pulling her out of death's reach. She did not know his name, his origin, or even if he was entirely human. A part of her wanted to flee from him, to avoid the danger he embodied. Yet another part, the deeper, more reckless part, wanted to understand him, to unravel the mystery that had crashed into her world without warning. She felt the faintest thrill of fear mingling with desire, and it confused her. The forest, the town, the bakery. They felt like a fragile cage, and somehow the stranger was a key she wasn't sure she wanted to hold. At night, Greyhaven was quiet, except for the wind threading through the streets and the occasional owl hooting in the distance. Alara sat on her attic windowsill, the locket around her neck cold against her skin, tracing the intricate silver pattern with her fingers. Her thoughts drifted to him, the strength in his presence, the wildness in his gaze. A flicker of memory, the growl, the inhuman speed, the way he seemed to read the shadows, made her shiver. She didn't know if he was friend or predator, savior or curse, but she felt tethered to him in a way that frightened her. Her heart beat unevenly at the thought of seeing him again, and yet part of her ached to be near him, to understand what had saved her life and claimed her heart in the same moment. She had no idea that the alley was only the beginning, that his world, tangled in secrets older than Greyhaven itself, was about to crash into hers, and that nothing would ever be ordinary again. Alara woke to the soft patter of rain against her attic window, heart still thrumming from the previous night's terror. The locket at her throat felt heavier than ever, as though it carried more than just her father's memory. She kept replaying the stranger's amber eyes, the way his strength had pressed against her trembling body, and the low growl that vibrated in his chest, warning the unseen attacker away. Her fingers traced the edge of the silver clasp, seeking comfort in its cold metal. Outside, the streets glistened with rain, silent except for the occasional drip from a sagging roof. She felt exposed, vulnerable, yet the memory of him, a figure of raw power, dangerous and protective, stirred something she could not name. The forest behind Greyhaven called to her, whispering secrets she couldn't yet decipher. It was a world she barely understood, and yet she knew that stranger belonged there, or somewhere close. Her pulse quickened as her imagination painted him in motion. Fluid, fast, unstoppable, a creature of shadow and moonlight. The next day, life in the bakery felt suffocating. The smell of yeast and sugar, a reminder of normalcy she no longer wanted. Customers' faces blurred, and Aunt Marian's voice, sharp with concern, barely registered. Alara's mind kept drifting back to him. Who was he? Why had he saved her? And most pressing, why did her heart ache to see him again? That evening, as the last customers left and the bakery door clicked shut, she made a decision. She would return to the forest's edge, the place where she had first glimpsed him. She couldn't explain the pull, the irresistible need to understand him. She wrapped herself in a dark cloak, rain dampening her hair, and stepped into the misted woods. Every rustle of leaves made her pulse spike, every shadow a potential threat, yet every step also filled her with a strange anticipation. She felt alive in fear, ready to confront whatever waited in the green twilight. Hidden among the trees, he watched her approach. The stranger moved like liquid, silent and deliberate, muscles coiled beneath his wet jacket. His amber eyes reflected the fading sunlight, sharp and unyielding. He did not step forward immediately, allowing her to see him from a distance, to sense the danger that clung to him like a second skin. He was more than human. That much was clear. The faint shimmer along his skin, the predatory awareness, the growl that rose softly when she neared, all hinted at a secret world she had only glimpsed in dreams. Yet when she finally stood before him, soaked and trembling, she felt no threat. Only fascination, a tether binding them together without explanation. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low, vibrating through her chest. She swallowed, her words caught between fear and longing, yet the pull to be near him overrode caution. Alara stepped closer, unable to resist, and he did not retreat. "Why do you follow me?" he asked, amber eyes scanning her face, searching for signs she could not name. I want to understand," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. He tilted his head, studying her like a predator evaluating prey, but something softened in his gaze, a flicker of recognition, as though he had been waiting for this confession. He gestured to a fallen log, and she hesitated, then sat. He remained standing, tension coiled in his body, eyes flicking to the shadows, ears attuned to sounds she couldn't hear. The wind shifted, carrying scents too complex for her senses, hints of danger and power. Yet she stayed, heart hammering, because she sensed she would learn nothing by fleeing. He finally exhaled, low and controlled, and for a brief moment he looked human, vulnerable even. Then, as twilight fell and the forest darkened, a growl rolled through the clearing, deeper and more feral than anything she had ever heard. Her stomach twisted, fear cutting through the fascination. The stranger's posture shifted instantly, muscles rippling under damp fabric. He moved in front of her protectively, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "They know you've seen me," he muttered, voice rough, warning. "And if they come?" His words hung in the mist, unfinished but deadly. Alara's chest tightened, yet she did not retreat. Something primal inside her recognized him, a connection older than memory. She realized that whatever he was, whatever world he belonged to, she could not turn away. Not now. Not ever. And in that charged silence, their hands brushed, a fleeting, electric contact that left her trembling, knowing her life had irrevocably shifted. In that moment, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. The forest seemed alive around them, shadows shifting as though whispering secrets meant only for the stranger and Alara. He had led her deeper than she had ever dared to go, over roots slick with rain, past gnarled trees that seemed to twist toward them. Each step was a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The air hummed with a power she could feel in her bones. She stole glances at him, his broad shoulders, the way muscles flexed under damp fabric, the intensity of amber eyes that flickered with both wildness and thoughtfulness. She tried to look away, to remind herself that he was dangerous, but her gaze returned involuntarily, drawn to him as if by an invisible tether. Her heart hammered in her chest, confusing adrenaline with something else, something she had never felt before. She sensed he noticed, the faint twitch of his jaw betraying a flicker of awareness, yet he said nothing, keeping his secrets close. The air between them was charged, a silent acknowledgement that the connection forming was forbidden, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. They reached a clearing where the moonlight spilled like silver liquid onto the mossy ground. He knelt and pointed to shallow carvings etched into a stone, symbols she did not recognize. "These are old," he said, voice low, reverent. "Older than your town. Older than most humans remember." Alara leaned closer, feeling a shiver run through her spine as the scent of him filled her senses. Earth, rain, something wild and unrestrained. She could feel his presence coiling around her like a protective barrier. Her pulse quickened, and she realized the truth. She was drawn to him, not just because he had saved her life, but because something in him awakened a part of her she had never known. Yet fear lingered, twisting in her stomach. Who, or what, was he? And why did his eyes seem to see straight into her soul, unraveling the walls she had carefully built around herself for years? Suddenly, a twig snapped behind them, sharp and insistent. He spun instantly, a blur of movement, and the forest seemed to react with him. Amber eyes glowed faintly as he crouched, muscles taut, growl rolling from deep in his chest. Alara froze, heart pounding, mesmerized by both terror and awe. Whoever, or whatever, was approaching would not find her unprotected. Not with him here. Yet the fear of the unknown mingled with an undeniable thrill. She had never felt more alive, more exposed, more tethered to someone who could destroy her or protect her beyond reason. In that moment, the forest, the night, and the stranger all felt like a single entity, a dangerous world she longed to understand. Her fingers brushed his arm, tentative, seeking reassurance, and he did not pull away. Instead, a subtle shift in his posture welcomed the contact, hinting at an unspoken bond forming between them. They remained in the clearing for hours, neither speaking much, the silence heavy with unspoken words and shared tension. The moon climbed higher, silvering the wet leaves, and Alara felt herself drawn closer despite the fear. He told her small things about the forest, how it had watched over him, protected him, and trained him. She listened, enraptured, feeling both a thrill and a growing ache in her chest. Every revelation made him more human, more relatable, yet more dangerous in ways she could not name. Her breath hitched when he moved to adjust a stray lock of her wet hair, fingers brushing her cheek in a gesture so gentle it almost contradicted the raw power coiled beneath his skin. She caught his gaze, and for the first time, she saw something beyond predator. A flicker of longing mirrored in his wild eyes. She didn't know what it meant, but she felt it too. A dangerous, irresistible pull that neither of them could deny. As dawn approached, the forest shifted again, light spilling through the trees, and reality crept back in. He stood, tall and unyielding, amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "You need to go back," he said, voice low but firm, almost commanding. "You cannot stay in my world. Not yet." She nodded, resisting the urge to argue, but the ache in her chest told her she didn't want to leave. She wanted answers, wanted him, wanted to understand the life he lived in shadows. The first tendrils of sunlight touched the moss, and he melted back into the forest, almost disappearing, leaving only the faintest scent of rain and earth behind. Alara watched him go, heart pounding, lungs burning, knowing she would return. She didn't know why, but she sensed her life had been irreversibly altered. The danger, the thrill, and the unspoken bond formed that night would shape her every choice. And the forest, the stranger, and the secrets he carried were only the beginning. Greyhaven had never felt so fragile. Alara returned home with her mind tangled in thoughts of him, the stranger whose amber eyes haunted her dreams. The bakery felt suffocating, every creaking beam and scent of yeast pressing against her chest. She knew she shouldn't linger on him. He was dangerous, unpredictable, but her heart refused to obey reason. That night, as she climbed the attic stairs, a shadow flickered in the corner of her vision. Her pulse quickened. Someone had been watching her. She froze, every sense screaming danger. But when she turned, the room was empty. Only the rain tapping against the window answered her. A low, instinctual fear gripped her stomach. Greyhaven had always been quiet, predictable, and safe. Now everything was uncertain. Someone, or something, had followed her home, and it wasn't human. The knowledge curled around her like smoke, and she realized her life would never be ordinary again. The stranger had saved her once, but now the threat felt personal, creeping closer with every heartbeat. The following day, Alara tried to find normalcy, but the unease lingered like a shadow. Her friends noticed her distracted gaze, the tremor in her hands, yet she couldn't explain what was wrong. The stranger's face haunted her in every reflection, every glimmer of sunlight. She returned to the forest edge despite the fear, drawn by the invisible thread binding her to him. He appeared as silently as before, his presence both a comfort and a warning. Amber eyes locked on hers, muscles coiled, sensing the same danger she felt. "They're here," he murmured, jaw tight, scanning the trees. "You shouldn't be near me tonight." She swallowed, nodding, but her stubbornness flared. She refused to be kept in the shadows, refused to ignore her instincts. Her curiosity and the strange pull in her chest demanded she face the unknown. The forest seemed to tense around them, holding its breath, and she realized that stepping closer meant stepping into a world of peril she barely understood. The danger revealed itself in the form of whispers, fleeting shadows, and rustling leaves. Figures moved between the trees, too fast, too silent, too deadly. He stepped in front of her, protective and primal, and she felt a surge of warmth mixed with fear. The first shadow lunged, a dark, twisted form that snarled with feral intent. The stranger's movements were fluid, almost otherworldly, and he struck with inhuman speed. Alara's stomach twisted as she realized that his world was filled with predators far more dangerous than she could imagine. Her chest tightened, but she remained rooted, fascination mingling with terror. Every detail of him, muscles flexing, eyes blazing amber, voice low with warning, made her heart race in ways she could not control. She wanted to run, yet she wanted to stay, to witness him fight, to understand the danger and the depth of his power. When the last shadow retreated into the darkness, the stranger turned to her, chest heaving, amber eyes softening slightly. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low, controlled but tinged with emotion she didn't expect. Alara's throat tightened. "I can't stay away," she whispered, words trembling on her lips. The truth was undeniable. She was tethered to him in ways she couldn't explain, drawn into his world against every instinct screaming caution. He exhaled, running a hand through his damp hair, and for a brief moment he looked almost human. Vulnerable, worn, and achingly close. The forest seemed to hold them in suspended time, the tension between them thick as the mist curling around their feet. She realized that fear and desire were intertwined, and that danger only heightened the pull she felt toward him. She wanted answers, wanted safety, wanted him, even knowing that the very world he inhabited could destroy her. As night fell, Alara returned home again, soaked, shivering, heart racing. The bakery smelled faintly of bread and candle wax, yet she barely noticed. Her mind replayed the events of the forest, the shadows and the stranger's fierce protectiveness. Something inside her had changed. Her fear had become determination. Her curiosity now a necessity. She knew she was entangled in a world she barely understood, yet she couldn't turn away. The night stretched long, filled with anticipation and unspoken questions. Somewhere beyond the trees, the stranger waited, watching, guarding, and silently claiming her heart. And Alara understood with sudden clarity. Her life had forever been split between the world she knew and the dangerous, wild, irresistible world he represented. She was no longer just a girl in Greyhaven. She was part of something far larger, far darker, and far more powerful than she could yet comprehend. Alara awoke to the bakery's muted light, but unease had rooted itself in her chest. The previous night's forest encounter replayed in her mind, every rustle of leaves, every amber flicker of his eyes. Yet now, shadows felt closer, sharper, as though the town itself had turned against her. She had begun to sense that Greyhaven was not merely ordinary. It had secrets, whispers, and eyes that watched her every step. Her aunt's kindness felt strained, distant, and the familiar smells of bread and vanilla could no longer comfort her. She moved through the morning chores with a distracted precision, aware of every footstep behind her. A note slipped beneath the door caught her attention, delicate handwriting curling across the paper. It read simply, "Do not trust him." Her stomach plummeted. Who had written it? What did it mean? She folded it carefully, her fingers trembling. The stranger had saved her life, yes, but someone in Greyhaven knew more than she did. The first thread of doubt crept into her mind. Could the very man who claimed her heart be leading her into danger she didn't yet see? By midday, She found herself at the edge of the forest again, compelled by the invisible thread that bound her to him. The stranger emerged from the shadows as silently as ever, eyes flashing amber like molten gold. He sensed her tension instantly. "Something's wrong," she whispered, holding the note behind her back. His jaw tightened, muscles coiling under damp fabric, the predatory edge in his gaze sharpening. "You've been warned," he said softly, voice vibrating with restrained fury. "By them or by someone else?" she asked, voice trembling. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his black hair, wet with mist. "There are things you don't understand, and it's not just your life at stake. Trust is a weapon, and it's being used against you." Her stomach twisted. Betrayal was not just possible, it was imminent. She realized that stepping closer to him meant not only surrendering to desire, but also exposing herself to the very forces that could destroy her. As twilight settled, figures emerged from the trees, humanoid, but unnervingly inhuman. The stranger moved in front of her, protective and fierce, muscles rippling with controlled aggression. The first figure lunged, claws glinting in the fading light. He struck with inhuman precision, amber eyes blazing, yet the battle revealed more than strength. Subtle hesitation, a fleeting glance that suggested recognition, or perhaps guilt. Alara's pulse raced as fear and attraction collided, grounding her to the earth. She realized then that the world he inhabited was not just dangerous. It was morally complex, full of lines she didn't yet understand. And somehow, she was part of it now. Every instinct screamed to run, but another, deeper, more reckless, pulled her closer to him, whispering that survival would not be enough. She wanted him, regardless of betrayal, regardless of the danger that circled them like wolves at midnight. After the attackers fled, leaving only the scent of wet earth and ozone, the stranger's amber eyes softened, briefly vulnerable. "You shouldn't be involved," he murmured, voice low but trembling, as though the weight of responsibility pressed on him. Alara shook her head, her hair damp, heart hammering. "I am involved. I can't turn back." He exhaled, tension rolling off him in waves, and for a fleeting moment she saw him as human. Not predator, not savior, but a man burdened with impossible choices. Their hands brushed, brief and electric, sending warmth through her entire body. Her heart thudded in her chest as the forest held them in suspended tension, shadows stretching like fingers, hiding dangers she did not yet understand. He said nothing further, only studied her, amber eyes glittering with unspoken warning and longing. Night fell fully, blanketing the forest and town alike in darkness. Alara returned home, heart heavy, mind racing with doubt and desire. The note's warning lingered like smoke in her thoughts. Do not trust him. Yet she could not ignore him, could not resist the pull of the stranger who had claimed her heart in a single, violent night. She understood now that betrayal was not a distant possibility. It was imminent, threaded through the shadows, and tangled with the dangerous attraction that had taken root between them. Every heartbeat, every shiver of anticipation, reminded her that love in this world was as perilous as the predators lurking just beyond the trees. And in the quiet, empty attic, Alara realized that to survive, to understand, to embrace desire, she would need to confront the lies, the secrets, and the impossible choice, whether to trust him or risk losing him forever. The forest felt alive with whispers the night Alara returned, each rustle of leaves a warning, each shadow a hidden threat. Her heart raced, not only with fear, but with anticipation. The stranger waited where the trees thinned, amber eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. He moved toward her like a predator, and protector rolled into one, every motion fluid, controlled, yet charged with emotion. "You shouldn't have come alone," he murmured, voice rough with restrained anger. She swallowed, wet hair clinging to her cheeks, refusing to step back. "I had to," she whispered. "I need to understand." His gaze softened briefly, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through the feral intensity, but it was fleeting. Then the forest shifted, and the truth she had not yet been ready for emerged. Figures materialized from the mist, creatures half human, half wolf, eyes glowing with predatory intent. Her stomach dropped. These were the forces he had warned her about, and they were closing in faster than either of them had anticipated. The stranger stepped in front of her instantly, muscles rippling, amber eyes blazing like fire against the misted trees. "Run!" he commanded, voice sharp, vibrating with primal authority. Alara's instinct screamed to obey, yet something deeper anchored her to the moment. She could see the tension in him, the restraint he exerted to keep the creatures at bay without revealing his full strength. His growl rolled low and dangerous, cutting through the night. The first creature lunged, he moved like liquid, striking with impossible speed and precision. Alara's breath caught in her throat as she watched him fight, awe and fear mingling in equal measure. She realized in that instant that his world was darker, wilder, and more dangerous than she had ever imagined, and yet a part of her had always known she belonged here, beside him, in the heart of chaos. Amid the chaos, he caught her hand, dragging her to the safety of a moss-covered cliff hidden from view. Her chest heaved, heart pounding, pulse hammering in time with his. "Why do you stay?" he demanded, amber eyes scanning her face as though searching for her soul. Her lips trembled, and the words spilled out, raw and unguarded. "Because I can't leave you. Because something in me knows I'm meant to be here. With you." His jaw tightened, conflicted, but he said nothing, only held her closer. She could feel the heat radiating from him, the thrum of power beneath his skin, the feral edge that could kill or protect in a heartbeat. She trembled in his arms, not from fear alone, but from the magnetic pull that had drawn her to him since the alley, the same pull that had stolen her breath, her certainty, her very heart. After the creatures retreated into the shadows, leaving the clearing eerily quiet, he finally lowered his voice. "You don't understand what this means," he whispered, amber eyes softening just enough to show the faintest pain. "I belong to them, in ways you can't imagine. I am not fully human." The words hit her like a stone in her chest. She staggered back slightly, gripping the locket at her throat. "You're a wolf?" she asked, voice barely audible. His nod was slow, deliberate, as though accepting the truth aloud hurt him. "Part wolf, part predator, part protector. And now, part of your life, whether you like it or not." Her pulse quickened, and a shiver ran down her spine. The danger, the romance, the thrill, it all became impossibly real. She realized she was in too deep, her heart claimed by a creature who existed on the edge of life and death, light and shadow. The night stretched long as they stood on the cliff, the forest humming around them, alive, with unseen eyes. He remained close, yet distant enough to remind her of the fragile boundary between them. "There are rules," he said softly, amber eyes meeting hers. "Rules I cannot break." She nodded, swallowing hard, feeling the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on her. "Then teach me," she whispered. "Teach me to survive, to understand, to be part of your world." His gaze softened, a faint flicker of admiration and longing crossing his features. He reached out, brushing wet hair from her cheek, fingertips lingering longer than necessary. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat the forest, the shadows, and the creatures beyond ceased to exist. It was just them, and the undeniable bond that had been forged in terror, in protection, in stolen moments of raw emotion. And in that instant, Alara knew with certainty her life would never return to what it was before. The stranger had not only saved her life, he had claimed her heart, and nothing could undo it. The days that followed were tense and fragile, each one a careful balance between fear and desire. Ilara moved through Greyhaven with a restless energy, sensing eyes in every shadow, whispers in every corner. The stranger had become both her anchor and her torment, his presence a constant pull she could not resist. Yet a growing unease gnawed at her. Someone in the town, or perhaps beyond, knew more than they should. Every step toward the forest's edge felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm of danger. She remembered his amber eyes, the feral warning he carried, and she knew that trust was as fragile as glass. And yet she longed for him, for the brush of his hand, the warmth of his body, the wild heartbeat that seemed to echo her own. The thrill of the forbidden coursed through her veins. But the forest had teeth, and the predator's world was never forgiving. One evening she found herself alone in the clearing where she had first touched him, waiting. Rain slicked the moss underfoot, mist curling around the trees. Then he appeared, quiet as shadows, but his expression was unreadable, sharp and tense. "They know you've been here," he said, amber eyes flicking to the darkness beyond. Alara's stomach twisted. "Then why bring me here again?" she asked, voice trembling with frustration and fear. His jaw tightened, and he looked away briefly, hiding the turmoil beneath. "Because you need to understand, and I cannot keep you safe forever. They will come for you." The words struck her like ice. Safety was a fleeting illusion. He had saved her once, but the deeper truth was undeniable. Their worlds were colliding, and trust was a weapon that could be shattered in an instant. Suddenly, movement flashed between the trees. A figure she had trusted, someone she had confided in, stepping into the clearing. Betrayal hit her chest like a hammer. "Ilara," the figure whispered, voice trembling with urgency. He isn't what he seems. You have to leave him." The stranger's eyes snapped to the intruder, amber blazing with warning, body coiled like a predator ready to strike. Heart pounding, Ilara froze, torn between the one who had saved her life and the one claiming to protect her from him. Conflicting emotions surged: fear, love, doubt, and rage. The forest seemed to shrink around her, shadows pressing close, pressing in on her choices. Every instinct screamed for her to run, yet another, deeper, more reckless, compelled her to stay. She realized in that moment that betrayal was not always obvious, and that love could be the most dangerous weapon of all. The stranger stepped closer, his presence a shield against the world and its lies. "Do not trust whispers," he growled, voice low, vibrating with raw power. "They want to drive a wedge between us. They want fear to rule you." Alara's chest heaved, fingers trembling as she reached for his hand. His amber eyes softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through the feral intensity. "I will not hurt you," he said, voice quiet, deliberate. Yet the fear lingered, mingling with desire, tugging her heart in impossible directions. The intruder's eyes darted between them, the tension snapping like a wire stretched too far. Ilara realized then that nothing was simple. Love, trust, danger, and betrayal were all tangled in a web she had stepped into unwittingly. Every choice now carried weight, and the cost of a single misstep could be catastrophic. Night deepened, and the intruder vanished into the shadows, leaving silence thick with unspoken truths. Ilara and the stranger remained in the clearing, the mist curling around them, the moonlight glinting off wet leaves. Her heart pounded as she pressed closer, drawn by something undeniable, impossible to resist. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, voice trembling. He cupped her face, fingers brushing her wet hair, amber eyes locking on hers. "You are already part of it," he murmured. "Part of me, and there is no going back." The truth settled in her chest, heavy and exhilarating. Trust had fractured, danger loomed, yet their connection burned brighter than fear. In the quiet, charged silence, she realized that love, wild, dangerous, and impossible, was worth the risk. And though the night threatened to tear them apart, Elara knew she would face whatever came next, with him at her side, even if the world was poised to betray them both. The night arrived like a storm, heavy clouds swallowing the moon and choking the forest in darkness. Elara ran, heart hammering, lungs burning, every muscle taut with fear and adrenaline. Behind her, the sound of snapping branches and guttural growls chased her like a living nightmare. The intruder from before had returned, this time with more than words. He brought an army of shadows, creatures that moved with predatory precision, hungry for blood and chaos. She stumbled, slipping on wet moss, and panic rose like fire in her chest. Then, without warning, the stranger appeared, a blur of black and amber, force coiling around him like a living thing. His growl rolled through the forest, low and feral, vibrating in her bones, and every predator paused, sensing a power far greater than their own. Her breath caught, torn, between terror and awe, as she realized he would fight to the death for her, for them, for the bond they had forged. The forest itself seemed to brace for the coming battle. He reached her in an instant, hands firm on her arms, amber eyes flashing with urgency. "Stay behind me," he ordered, voice low but commanding. She wanted to protest, to stand and fight beside him, yet instinct rooted her in place. He moved like liquid death, every movement precise, every strike a calculated surge of raw power. The creatures attacked with reckless ferocity, claws slashing through rain-slicked air, yet he met them with inhuman speed. Alara's chest tightened, heart thudding as she watched him fight, not just for himself, but for her. Every growl, every strike, every sweep of his powerful limbs was a symphony of danger and protection. And yet, even in the chaos, their hands brushed, briefly, fleetingly, sending fire up her spine, reminding her that desire burned as brightly as fear. Amid the fray, one shadow lunged directly at Elara, faster than she could react. A scream tore from her throat, but he was there, intercepting the strike with a speed that made her chest ache in awe. Amber eyes met hers, blazing with intensity and an unspoken promise. She would be safe, no matter the cost. He carried her back, away from the danger, the wind whipping their hair, rain plastering them together. Every heartbeat, every pulse of adrenaline, every glance locked in mutual understanding. They were tethered irrevocably. And yet the betrayal lingered in the back of her mind, a shadow she could not dismiss. Someone had tried to manipulate her, to drive a wedge between them, and she knew the battle extended beyond the forest. The stranger's strength was extraordinary, but so was the web of secrets and danger that threatened to tear them apart. Finally, with a final roar that shook the trees, he struck down the last of the shadows. Silence fell like a heavy cloak, rain drumming softly against leaves and moss. He stood before her, chest heaving, amber eyes molten with exertion and emotion. Elara reached for him, trembling, voice barely a whisper. I thought I'd lose you." He cupped her face, fingers brushing rain-soaked hair from her eyes, growl softening to a low rumble of relief. "You won't," he whispered, voice raw and intimate. "Not while I breathe." The night seemed to exhale with them, the forest's shadows retreating, leaving only the pulsing bond between them. She realized then that love and danger were inseparable in this world, that her heart had already been claimed, and that no force, human or supernatural, could sever it. As dawn threatened the horizon, the forest bathed in silver light. She pressed close to him, fingers entwined with his, hearts beating in rhythm with the earth itself. "I trust you," she breathed, amber eyes meeting his, full of courage, desire, and the acknowledgement of all they had survived. He nodded, a faint smile breaking through his primal ferocity, and for the first time, he let her see the man beneath the predator, the protector beneath the beast. "And I will protect you," he said softly, voice heavy with promise and love. Together they stood in the clearing, wet, bruised, hearts tethered, knowing the world was dangerous, wild, and unpredictable, but also knowing they had survived it, stronger, closer, and irrevocably bound. The night had tested them. Fire and fury had shaped them, and the bond forged in chaos now shone brighter than any shadow. Alara's life, once ordinary and fragile, was forever intertwined with him, the rogue who had saved her and claimed her heart. The dawn broke over Greyhaven with gold and rose spilling across the misted trees, painting the forest in soft light. Alara stood at the clearing's edge, heart pounding but steady, hands brushing dew from the moss beneath her fingertips. The rogue, her savior, her protector, her heart, stood beside her, amber eyes catching the morning sun, wild and tender at once. The shadows of the previous nights had vanished, leaving only clarity and the hum of life in the forest. For the first time she felt the full weight of survival and the sweetness of victory. Every fear, every betrayal, every pulse of danger had led her here, to this moment where nothing remained between them. She exhaled, long and slow, feeling the bond they had forged stronger than any threat, unbreakable and radiant. The forest itself seemed to acknowledge them, sunlight dancing over leaves like applause. He reached for her, hands steady but warm, brushing her hair from her rain-soaked face. "You've proven yourself," he said softly, voice low and intimate, vibrating with pride and affection. "You've survived everything, and you've chosen me despite knowing the danger." Alara's lips trembled into a small smile, heart swelling with the gravity of his words. "I didn't choose danger," she admitted, fingers entwining with his. "I chose you. That was the only choice I could make." His amber eyes softened, gleaming with a mixture of wildness and tenderness, the predator and the man merging into one. For a heartbeat the forest held its breath, the world paused, and all that mattered was the tether that had bound them since that rainy night when he had claimed her heart and saved her life. The rogue knelt in front of her, the soft earth cushioning him, and whispered, "From this moment on, you belong to me, and I to you. Whatever comes, we face it together." Alara's throat tightened with emotion, tears forming at the edges of her eyes. She had imagined danger, betrayal, and fear, but never this clarity, this overwhelming certainty that the man before her, the creature both terrifying and mesmerizing, was hers in a way that transcended survival. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling the steady, strong heartbeat, and let the warmth of love, trust, and surrender wash over her. The rogue smiled faintly, a flicker of mischief breaking the intensity, yet his eyes remained molten with devotion. "I've claimed your heart," he said softly, "and I will guard it for as long as I breathe." Suddenly, movement stirred in the distance, faint, cautious, uncertain. The shadows that had haunted them, the whispers of betrayal and fear, had not vanished completely. But this time Alara did not flinch. She stood tall, hand in his, feeling power coursing through her veins, courage tempered by love. "We face them together," she whispered, voice steady, determination firm. He nodded, amber eyes gleaming with pride, and together they stepped forward into the light. No longer prey, no longer uncertain. The forest, once a place of terror and mystery, now seemed to cradle them, a witness to their bond and survival. Every threat, every secret, every fear had been overcome, and what remained was undeniable. Trust, love, and the fierce protection of hearts claimed and irrevocably joined. As the sun rose fully, golden light spilling over the horizon, the rogue and Alara walked through the forest hand in hand, bodies close, hearts tethered, souls intertwined. Greyhaven lay quiet behind them, a world of ordinary life now forever changed by the extraordinary bond they had forged. She looked up at him, amber eyes meeting his, and whispered, I am yours. His smile was fierce and tender, a promise, a vow, and he leaned down to brush his lips against hers, soft but searing. And I am yours, he replied, voice low, molten with devotion. In that moment, the past's shadows, the forest's dangers, and every heartbeat of fear were eclipsed by the certainty of their love. The rogue had saved her life, claimed her heart, and together they would face every shadow yet to come. Together, unbroken and unstoppable. The forest whispered approval, the wind carrying their laughter, and for the first time, Ilara felt wholly, unequivocally home. Before you go, I want to know, which moment in this story gripped you the most? Was it the first time the rogue saved Ilara, the forest showdown, or that final, heart-stopping moment when their hearts were finally claimed? Drop a comment below and tell me your favorite chapter or scene. If this story pulled at your heartstrings, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more epic, emotional werewolf romances that keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment of love, danger, and suspense. And here's a question for you. If you were in Ilara's shoes, would you have trusted the rogue from the start, or would you have hesitated in the face of danger? Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, your theories, and your favorite twists. Finally, share this story with someone who loves thrilling, heart-pounding romance. They deserve to feel this adventure too. Remember, the forest may be dark, the danger real, but love always finds a way.